And so I wanted you to get at least a little feel of that. I have to admit to you, I was bluffing with the little kids. I did know the Olympics were going on. I'm actually a little bit of an Olympics junkie right now, and this is the first Olympics I've ever had a cable subscription for, and I've been live streaming every event no matter where I am, in my office, at home. I've had the TVs on. My roommate and I have 2 TVs, so we can watch 2 events at the same time. I haven't had the most productive week. That said, this sermon took me a little bit longer to write than normal. So I figured I would write it and include the Olympics. The Olympic athletes, you watch these 14,000 plus athletes who have trained since they were maybe 5 years old and then trained their entire lives, and they've put in thousands upon thousands upon thousands of hours of training and time and travel, and with that money, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to get to that elite level where they can go and be an Olympic athlete. And you get there, and when you get to that point, I imagine you get to the Olympics and you're looking for some sort of return on your investment. You're looking for one of those top 3 pieces of bling that say, yes, it was all worth it. You're looking for some sort of return on all the time you've put in. I have to step back and just start by saying thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you to everybody in this room who's not sitting here, who was at the other service, who put in time and money and prayer and support in helping us to go on our mission trips. We took 15 youth and adults to York, Pennsylvania, middle school youth, and we took 25 youth and adults to New Orleans High School for the youth gathering. None of that would have been possible without the support of this congregation. I once again, thank you. It was a lot of work, it was a lot of prep, it was a lot of fundraising, and I would do it all again for the experiences that I had. And so I know you guys are sitting here probably saying, well, we want some return on our investment. You invested in these teens. You put money out there and said, we want you to go have an experience. But it's natural to want something back. Now, as only one person of those almost 40 people that went, I can't give you every experience. I can't tell you about every picture that we took. I can't even show you every picture in this limited amount of time. But I wasn't at every single spot during both of those. So what you need to do to get your return is actually work a little bit more. And you need to seek out, can I have any of the teens or adults that were on either middle school work camp or the youth gathering stand up? Or both of them. If you went to both of them, I went to both of them. So. And first of all, can we just, round of applause for them, because thank you, guys. So look at them, look at their faces, and there's others. Obviously, this isn't everybody. You guys can have a seat then. Seek them out. Find them. They're the ones with the stories. They're the ones who are dying to tell you about their experience. If you don't ask them, then you not only let them down, you do them a disservice by letting them come back from such a huge week to nothing, and just then what do, right? But you also, they're holding those stories they want to tell you about. You can ask the middle schoolers about going to York, PA and working at assisted living homes, about going to a home and working on grounds crew and cleanup, about cleaning up parks, about working at kids camps. Ask them about making York a better place for that community. Ask the high schoolers about going to New Orleans, to a city that we all know is broken, is rebuilding, is trying to get better. Ask them about the rain that we saw and how even now we talk to locals who aren't panicked but would really like it to stop. Ask about the water rising and even just a few hours of the rain having streets flooded. Ask them about their projects. Ask them about going to the gathering and taking communion with 35,000 other people on Sunday morning. Ask them about serving communion. Ask them about things that you don't know to ask them about. Ask them about walking down Bourbon Street and how they realized real quickly that this is a place that they don't want to end up. Ask them to share. Now, I have the floor, so I do have a little bit of power. I can show you a few things that we did. So this is the first one. This is our group that went to York, Pennsylvania. This is our middle schoolers and chaperones. Some of the work they did, like I said, kids clubs, park cleanup, yard work, painting. This is, obviously, it's not all work. It's Bible study and devotion time and family time in the evenings. And then obviously there's new friends and there's trips to Sheets and there's, just having fun, going to the pool, being friendly with each other. And then I know the one you're really interested in is New Orleans because that one costs a lot of money. And I know you're wondering, how do we know they didn't take our money and go to Disneyland? How do we know they didn't take our money and go out to eat every night this summer? Well, I have some proof. This is New Orleans as we came in on the bus. The top right is Royal Street. That's right near our hotel. We've stayed pretty much right in the French Quarter. Those two pictures on the bottom are two of the views from the top of our hotel. They had an observation deck. And then the top left, of course, is the Superdome. Obviously, those pictures can be gotten anywhere. So this is us at the Riverwalk, our teens, on the first day. And then here's a couple pictures. In the top left, you have, before our day of service, everybody was given orange T-shirts so that when you went out into the city to serve, they knew who you were. So that's approximately 11,000 people in the upper left waiting to go on their service day. In the upper right, that's the entire D.C. Metro Synod in one room worshiping together. And then obviously, lower left is us at the gathering one of the nights, and then lower right is Chris giving blood, one of the kids that gave blood for us. Upper left, you can see that's flooded streets. And these are just a couple other pictures of people having fun and learning. On the right there is a picture of some of our kids serving communion. Like I said, they got to not only take part in communion, but serve communion to those thousands of other people. On the left is a picture of just that, the communion. You can just see, we went to House of Blues, we went out to eat. It was just a good all-around time. And then this is a picture of the whole view, and you can see the floor is full of people. And then 2/3 of the dome is full. That's the main stage where we got to listen to all sorts of speakers and musicians and lots of acts. And then this is our group before we left. That's why they're all smiling. This was before we hopped on a bus for 20 hours, so you can ask them about that when you're asking them for stories. In New Orleans, we got to listen, like I said, to speakers. Our topic was peace and was bringing everybody together, like I said to the kids, under one God, bring them together as one. We got to listen to Nadia Bowles-Weber, who is a preacher at House for All Sinners and Saints. For those of you who don't know her, she has sleeves of tattoos up her arms. She is not your typical Lutheran preacher, and her church actually started as an AA recovery group. We listened to Shane Claiborne, who works out of Philadelphia, who is, I would say, a revolutionary for the church. He's the one who fights and protests and does all these things, and he helps at churches. And we got to listen to him tell stories about being arrested for being a Lutheran. And somebody said to him once, it must be easy to be a Lutheran, to be a Christian. It's all, there's no strife, there's nothing. And he looked at him and said, I never got arrested before I became a Christian. We got to listen about Diane Latiker, who in Chicago, on the streets of Chicago, opened up her house to kids on the street who were pressured with drugs and gangs and dropping out of school, and she's helped them get GEDs and graduate high school and go on to college. She'll have over 50 kids every night in her small town home. We got to listen to Megan Stubbs, who's an 18-year-old who's been in Tanzania for 6 years as a missionary with her parents. We got to listen to Nobel Peace Laureate Lema Gbowe, who, if any of you were watching the opening ceremonies, carried in the torch at one point. She has been working in Africa and played a pivotal role in ending the civil war in Liberia. We got to listen to all sorts of speakers. That's only a handful. We got to listen to so many. I went up to my office earlier. I was looking at them. If I named them all, I'd forget the ones I started with. And we got to listen to musicians and artists and see all this stuff about New Orleans and all over the country. Talking about peace between nations, peace between ourselves, peace within congregations. And I think about that, and I think about church. I was born a Christian. I was a Christian in the womb. My parents were both Sunday school teachers. My dad was a youth minister at one point, oddly enough. And so I was Christian since before I knew what that was. But when I went to college, when anybody goes to college and you get out from under the roof, you're given that opportunity to go explore and figure it out. And I decided that I really liked Christianity. And I didn't really like Christianity because of Sunday morning worship. I do like Sunday morning worship, but 8 a.m. waking up on a Sunday morning, it's not exactly my idea of a good weekend. That's not why I stayed a Christian. I stayed a Christian because I loved the service that we did. I loved being in my church and going to soup kitchens. I loved helping with book drives and coat drives and all of that. I loved going out and getting my hands dirty and doing yard work. That's why I stayed a Christian. When you're a Christian just for worship, you miss all that other stuff. And I would imagine most of you aren't Christians just because of Sunday morning worship. When I think of church, I think of this is like our hub. And I know Dave talked about bees a couple weeks ago. We get to go out and serve the world and go tell others about Jesus and serve them. And then we come back to church to get support, to talk to each other, to build ourselves up, to learn of new opportunities that we can go and serve with. And then we go out again. I think about being a Christian just for Sunday morning worship would be roughly the same as being an Olympic athlete just for the Olympic Village. There isn't an athlete out there who spent all those thousands of hours training just to go to London and hang out in the Olympic Village and eat and talk and be with the other athletes. No, they go there to be in the village, but then to go out and they compete against the other nations, the best in the world. And then when they come back at night, I imagine they tell stories about training mishaps or great races or not great races. They share tips. They give each other support. And then they go back out again the next day and do it all over again. When we were at work camp, we met every night back at the middle school. And then we would go out during the day to all our different sites. And then we would come back and tell stories. On both trips, in the gathering and in York, every night we did highs and lows, or rose and thorn, which is where you share your high point of the day and your low point of the day, something you're not as excited about. And we sat there and we listened to each other and we made comments and we asked questions, because even though our whole group was at the same place, we didn't get to see all these stories. Same as like I was telling you about. Everybody had their own experiences, their own high points, their own low points. So we got to listen to those and ask questions about them and hear each other's stories. And then the next day, we would go back out and do it again. Mission trips aren't meant to be the high point of being a Christian. They are meant to be what we do, what we are meant to serve. They are supposed to be our goal, is to go serve others. And we don't have to go on a week-long mission trip. We can help around here as well. Our teens come back, and I'm really hoping that they got something out of these camps, that they were rejuvenated and ready to go out and serve here, especially going back to school where there's going to be peer pressure and pressure to not be an upstanding Christian youth. And I'm hoping they have that network here where they can find a friend and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, or hey, what are you struggling with? I can help you. So I look at all these things and I think about the gospel and how I like the 4 gospels, but to me, sometimes they're a little distant because it's what Jesus was actually saying, what he was actually doing, and I'm not standing here looking at Jesus. And I wonder about that crowd that came up to him and said, how do we know that you're Jesus? You know, the other people, our ancestors, they got bread from heaven. You know, they had a sign. How do we know that you're real? How do we know? We don't even have Jesus standing there saying, hello, it's me. We don't have that. So what do? We do this service. But I like the epistles, and you didn't get to hear the lesson, but today was Paul's letter to Ephesians, which we've been working out of the last couple weeks. And in it he says, obviously these new Christian communities have the same questions. What do we do now that Jesus is gone? How do we tell others? And he says, all you're supposed to do is go love everybody. Just be a light to everybody. Do service. Hold a door for somebody. Help them pick up their books. And then Paul says, and God didn't make everybody the same. We were 35,000 Lutherans in New Orleans, but I can tell you that is about all we had in common. There were people from all over the country, of all different accents and even different languages. And we're there, and we all have different experiences and different stories and different upbringings. And that's the point. Paul says, God made pastors, and he made evangelists, and he made teachers, and he made ministers and missionaries. He made everybody different. He gave us all different gifts. I wouldn't be great at leading a women's ministry. That's not my gift in life. God didn't make me for that purpose. So we look at ourselves and we think, what can I offer? What can I do? How can I better serve the world? And I think about this, and I think about how many sports there are in the Olympics and how many different people there are in the world. And I was being serious. If we could have 7 billion people worshiping God, how amazing would that be? And what do we have to do to get there? We have to be us. We have to be us for Jesus. And I go back to the ELCA and our motto, and just to help get the point across. And I don't know how many of you know the ELCA motto, but this isn't it. Neither is this. Neither is this. Not this either. We're getting closer, getting a little bit more down to our level, but youth, unfortunately, you're not out of it. This isn't it either. It's not just me. And it's not somebody else, and this was my favorite one to write. It's not this. The ELCA's motto is God's work, our hands, all of us, because without all of us, it'll never succeed. It is our job to go out and to share our stories and bring everybody to being part of one in Jesus. Amen.